Hello, you beautiful people. Aaron here. Welcome back to another video. So today we have the Al-Haitham analysis video. If you don't know, I'm splitting my normal one video into two different parts. One is going to be the guide and the other one's going to be the analysis. So today we are just checking in on his strength as a character and his overall whole value for your entire account. The purpose, which we will get to more towards the end, is to find out how easy he is to play, what sort of utility he has, how much damage he does, and how versatile he is. All of that combined is going to contribute to that sort of score. For the rest of the video, Al-Haitham is at a high yet possible investment. I will also be using his signature weapon and a weapon you all voted for, that being the Black Sword, for all my analyses in this video. Also, there are chapters in the description for you to peruse at your leisure. And finally, if you like my content, like, comment, subscribe. Thank you. So let's get into it. We're going to talk about his combos first and how his can't incentivize certain things. So this is actually Aaron from the future here, because just as I was getting ready to finish up this video, they shifted Al-Haitham's numbers around and I got frustrated and I took a break. So while discussing his best combo, I also want to talk a bit about his changes. First, I need to mention his mirror mechanic, which grants Al-Haitham a Dendro Infusion and can't be overridden. He gains mirrors by activating his skill, which will grant him 1, but if he has no mirrors prior to using his skill, he will gain 2. By using his Ascension passive, he will get 1 from his charge attack or plunging attack, and he will get some mirrors from using his burst, at which point it will grant him the amount of mirrors of 3 minus his current mirrors on burst cast. His mirrors impact the damage of his elemental skills, coordinated attack, and elemental burst damage instances. The more mirrors he has, the more times his burst hits for, and the less damage, but more times his skills coordinated attacks hit for. The changes they made were directed at nerfing his charge attack, elemental burst, and initial elemental skill damage, as well as his Ascension for passive effect. However, they did buff the third mirror attack's damage, and I think seconds too, but that doesn't matter. So they put less incentive on his burst and the lower mirror hits of his skill, as well as his normal attacks. This actually changed his optimal damage rotation from skill, burst, charge attack, and then normal attack to death to now burst and then normal attack until you lose the third mirror, at which point you want to skill or charge attack to regain a mirror and repeat until you want to swap off. By using this combo, you're actually increasing his damage output from before because this combo was buffed. But the last combo got about a 14% damage nerf. Now, this does change specific number stuff, but I want to note that I am lazy. And I want to get this video done, so I won't change my audio too much unless I have to. So just make sure you look on screen to see actual numbers and percent damage differences, because the ones I say are gonna be off by about like 5%. What is on screen is the actual updated stuff. Otherwise, nothing really changes my opinion on him, so just make sure you actually watch to see the number differences and whatnot, as all of those are up to date. Moving on, now, what are his best artifact sets? Well, he only really has 2, since he is a normal attacking spread on field main TPS. There's the Gilded Dreams and the Deepwood Memories. But which one is better? For this, I will be using Nahida, and I also won't be using Nahida. You get 4 different numbers for each weapon to compare with. In my testing, Al-Haitham and Nahida will be swapping their artifact sets. So if Al-Haitham has a Deepwood, then that means Nahida has Gilded Dreams. If Nahida has Deepwood, that means Al-Haitham has Gilded Dreams. So with Nahida, Al-Haitham gets a 162.5 Elemental Mastery from her with a decent EM stat. He also gets the benefit from the Res Shred she provides from Deepwood. But would it be better if he got the percent damage bonus and resistance shred while she provided a better buff? Well, no, not at all. With Nahida, Gilded Dreams is just straight up better by about 4 to 5%. Without Nahida, Al-Haitham loses the AoE Dendro resistance shredding and the increased elemental mastery. So now what does he benefit more from? Without the use of Deepwood on another unit, Al-Haitham's personal damage output comes up short when he uses Gilded compared to when he uses Deepwood. If he is the one with Deepwood when no one else uses it, his damage increases by about 6.2% to 9.5% over Gilded Dreams. So that makes this set mandatory for someone to hold in the comps you want to use him in. There's also the question I want to answer of, is attack better than EM? And the answer is just straight up no. The good news is it's not by much. For all those who don't know, Elemental Mastery is one of the hardest main stats that you can seek out on your artifact sets. So the ability to swap into an attack percent sands is incredibly good. But how much are you getting from EM? EM on the sands for Al-Haitham and with substats is only better than attack percent in those spots by 4.2%, which is barely anything. So if you have a godlike attack percent sands, but not a good elemental mastery sands, take the attack percent sands. It's going to end up being a damage buff because he scales harder with the crit, and he can make up for the elemental mastery through Nahida and other elemental mastery sources like Albedo too. Now that we have that out of the way, I want to talk about Constellations. His first constellation is extremely bad. His first constellation makes it so that when his mirrors attack hits an opponent, his elemental skills cooldown will be decreased by 1 second. This would allow him to have permanent uptime, but only if he has 3 mirror stacks. Otherwise, he's not going to have permanent uptime. The thing is, Al-Haitham already gets permanent uptime. You just have to work slightly harder for it. So this constellation just does nothing. And especially in team rotations, this will do nothing. It won't net you a base damage increase at all. The second constellation is his second best constellation. His C2 grants Al-Haitham 40 elemental mastery for every mirror summoned up to a max of 4. This allows him to gain a total of 120 elemental mastery, which leads to about a 9.4 to 9.7% boost. For his third constellation, it's just okay. His constellations that increase his base damage are his lowest damage increases, well, other than his first one. This one increases his skill's damage, but only increases his total damage output by about 3%. C4 is actually pretty good. It grants him utility and percent damage bonuses. When he activates his burst, all mirrors consumed grant 30 elemental mastery to all party members other than himself. Then he grants himself 10% dendro damage bonus for every mirror that he gains from his burst. C5 is a level up for his burst and grants about a 4.8% damage bonus. C6 is where it gets crazy. This constellation grants Al-Haitham a 10% crit rate and 70% crit damage bonus when he gets a max of 4 mirrors. Now this is incredibly hard to do on its own and can only be done by forcing it by casting his elemental burst and then charged attacking. This would grant the 4th stack and would also grant Al-Haitham a 30% damage bonus from his C4, eliminating his utility. It would also force him into using his third mirror strike constantly, which is a good thing since it has the highest damage output for all mirrors. All of this combined grant Al-Haitham an insane damage boost. Weapons. So let's take a look at some weapons to see how good they are on him. All these weapons will include Nahida's buffs. Also just note that if you do have Wandering Evenstar on Nahida, it'll do more for you than most other weapons due to the attack buff it grants. I'm just going to give you an overall look at each of his weapons and then what I recommend for them. So let's run right through this. In order from best to worst, here's his signature weapon, Primordial Jade Cutter, Haran Grebeka Futsu, Midsplitter Reforge, and then Harbinger of Dawn. You should be aiming for these weapons. Harbinger of Dawn is extremely free-to-play friendly, and it doesn't require much from you. Maybe just a shield or a decent support. Just don't go like a full damage comp, and you'll be fine with Harbinger of Dawn. After that is going to be the Lion's Roar, but at the cost of having to use 2 Electro characters to keep the Electro aura up. If you don't do this, you're not going to get the damage bonus. This actually pegs him down in my eyes a bit because of this, since double Electro is not the best for Al-Haitham, but it can be used in free-to-play teams. Then we have the new Yokai Umbrella, which is really strong, but only in a single target situation. The Black Sword is underneath, but surpasses it with attack buffs and most other situations. After that, we have the Elemental Mastery weapons in the Iron Sting, Alley Flash, and Zyphos' Moonlight. Then there's Skyward, Sapwood, Amanoma Kageyuchi, and Festering Desire. That being said, I would rate them in this order. His signature weapon is first slightly ahead of Primordial Jade Cutter. The issue with his signature weapon is that it has a stack quota, which can run out in some situations. This is where Primordial Jade would overpower it. Otherwise, it's just behind. Midsplitter and Haran are equally good, as they grant some great attack, percent damage, and crit buffs. There's some real strong all-rounders and are very valuable, especially if you have some attack buffs. Next are Harbinger of Dawn and Black Sword. Both of these are great weapons. Though Harbinger is better, it does have a restriction which can not always be fulfilled, while the Black Sword does not, and also heals the user. Both are pretty valuable though. After that, the Iron Sting, which offers EM and percent damage, then the Lion's Roar and the Yokai Umbrella, as the downsides of these weapons outweigh the upsides, at least to me. However, if you don't have Nahida, the Lion's Roar is going to do you wonders. Up next is Zyphos' Moonlight, which provides some crazy good utility, especially since he needs the stats that this weapon scales with. After that, I'd give it to the Alley Flash, since while it does provide some good damage, it does require a shield, which sucks. Then there's Skyward and Sapwood, which both supply him with some good stats. Amanoma is okay, but he gains little from what it does other than the passive. And finally is the Festering Desire, which just doesn't scale too well with him. Now let's talk about his synergies. Since Al-Haitham is on field, you want an Electro off-field character. The first one that comes to mind is Fischl, since she is so insane in every single Quicken team. However, she does not work well with a spread DPS. The issue with Fischl is that she's not able to proc her Ascension 4 passive off of spread. She can when Quicken is activated, but spread does not count as an Electro-related reaction. And since the on-field character needs to proc an Electro-related reaction, she won't be able to get off her Ascension 4 passive as much as you would like her to. So she's basically out of the equation. Who else do we have as off-field Electro DPS characters? Well, we have Yaimiko, who I would never recommend to be an off-field Electro DPS character because she still has so many issues when being used in that regard, and a lot of them are fixed when she's actually being used on field. So I'm crossing her off the list. And the next one is Beto. Beto is insanely good in Quicken teams, and she got even better with Nahida, whose elemental skill pairs really well with Beto's elemental burst. The issue that she has is that she has some severe energy requirements. However, also because of Aggravate, some of these energy requirements can be lifted somewhat, especially with the emblem set, since the Aggravate reaction can make up for the damage loss that she would be getting from more attack-focused weapons. So you can put a Favonius Greatsword on her and you won't suffer too terribly. However, you do technically have some other options that are decent supports. Lisa is one of them, who has some pretty insane buffing. Lisa is not only a Catalyst user who can run Thrilling Tales, she also shreds the defenses of the enemy, which only 4 other characters can do. On top of that, she can also run a Noblesse set for more elemental burst damage and attack percent buffing, or you could put her on an Instructor set to grant elemental mastery to Al-Haitham, who will need it, and Beto, who will definitely benefit from it. On top of this, she will apply Quicken to targets. Overall, she's a pretty good buffing support, but she's not too great as her buffs are surpassed by both Nahida's and, surprise surprise, Bennett's, who could do what she does plus some. Then there's Kuki Shinobu, who has seen a lot of relevance with the introduction of Dendro. However, this is mostly in Hyperbloom scenarios, so if you do run a Kuki Shinobu, you're definitely going to want another Electro character and a Hydro character. This way you could still have the Quicken Aura on the targets, while also allowing Kuki Shinobu to deal Hyperbloom damage. And the final character you have is Dory. So yeah, we're gonna use Beto. She just pairs up so well with Al-Haitham and Nahida. There's also Nahida, who works amazingly as a support for Al-Haitham. Not only does she grant him insane elemental mastery buffs from Dendro Resonance and her own Ascension 4 passive, but she will also be shredding the resistances of the enemies with the Deepwood Memories set. With Al-Haitham, she'll also be benefiting from the Dendro Resonance passive to increase her Ascension 4 passive even more. She herself basically serves as a 50% damage increase to Al-Haitham's overall damage output. On top of this, she's also acting as a sub DPS option for Al-Haitham and will also be gaining a bunch of benefits from a Quicken reaction. She's literally perfect with Al-Haitham and is his best support. That's it. The other Dendro characters offer nothing other than resonance, but at that point you might as well just go with another Electro character and try out a different comp. After that, we have his supports in Zhongli, Diona, and Bennett. Zhongli offers some crazy good resistance shredding for the entire team, as well as an immortal shield and the ability to petrify the enemy. Diona offers some pretty great defensive utility, as well as elemental mastery at C6, which really helps out Al-Haitham's scaling. Then there's Bennett, who can giga buff Al-Haitham with attack buffs from his burst and elemental mastery from Sapwood Blade. All around, Bennett's buffs would grant Al-Haitham a 50% damage bonus, similarly to Nahida. As you can probably tell, the team comp I'm pushing for Al-Haitham is Al-Haitham with Nahida, Beto, and Bennett, as his overall damage output would basically double, while also having some insane AoE off-field damage from both Nahida and Beto. Bennett's attack buffs would also really help out Beto's elemental burst, which just got nerfed damage from her having to run Favonius. Beto's constant zapping in an AoE also works extremely well with Nahida's elemental skill, which will also hit the masses. Al-Haitham also gets a benefit from this, as his elemental skill will be hitting in a large area while his normal attack will be more single target focused. Everyone just works extremely well together, and with all the buffs, I found that Al-Haitham would be dealing about 85.5% of the damage that Hu Tao would in her best comp. The thing about this comp is that it's more AoE focused, which would allow everyone to possibly achieve even higher damage ceilings than Hu Tao's comp can. But I want to go back a bit, because a lot of the characters that I mentioned aren't specifically a spread support, or something that is just perfect for Al-Haitham. This is because he doesn't really have a great Quicken support character. The only Quicken support units in the entire game are those who offer elemental mastery buffing, which include Kale, Dendro Traveler, Nahida, and Albedo. That's about it. Without a Quicken support, it doesn't seem like you're going to get the most out of Al-Haitham. So it seems like we're in a situation where we're going to have to wait for him to get his best support. That is going to end up surpassing Bennett. I assume that's going to be Kave, but we won't know. The other issue is that he only has Beto to work with. Beto has only really her energy issue to worry about, and she offers an insane amount of damage in multi-target situations, but that's about it. She offers no utility, she offers no buffing, and her damage output is not the best. So those are the two spots that we're looking for an upgrade, really. And if we ever do get that upgrade, I expect Al-Haitham to be probably one of the best DPS in the game, if not the best. But that might never happen, so let's not focus on that. With all this in mind, let's talk about his rating. I started a new type of rating system that hopefully helps get a better idea of how I rate, and it also makes it easier for me to rate by comparing with the likes of other units. I'm rating his ease of use, or how easy he is to play, how much and how strong his utility is, how how high his DPS is, and how versatile he is as a character. Then I will take the average of those stats and see how good the character is based on that. However, since damage and utility is much more important in those situations than the other two, the impact their number has on the final number is much higher than the other two stats. The system is not to show if a character is meta, but more to show how good they are for an account. For overall ease of use, he's very easy, so I gave him a 4 out of 5 stars in this category. For utility, I give him a 1.5 out of 5 stars, simply due to the fact that he's Dendro, and Dendro is such a strong element, but he has nothing else. His damage is extremely high and very good in multi-target situations. It can compete with Hu Tao and Raiden Shogun, and that is enough for me to give him a 5 out of 5 in that category. Then there's versatility, in which case he has little of it. He could work in a few compositions, but if you have Nahida, so can she, but better. The only spot he is ever going to truly shine in is Quicken teams, but he's pretty solid in some other comps as well. So with rounding included, I'm going to give Al-Haitham a solid 3 out of 5 stars, as he is able to output some extreme damage in the situations where he is good, but only in those situations. Otherwise, Nahida will just do you one better. With all that aside, tell me what y'all think about Al-Haitham. Are you excited? Are you going to pull for him? Are you going to build him? What team comps do you think are good with him? Tell me in the comments down below. But with that, I will get out of your hair. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.